Now we're heading to the Supreme Court of Appeal. The question and answer session just concluding as the media leave that press briefing. Also, Sean Abrams talking about the whole Pravin Gordhan matter, speaking on those two matters today. The report of Pravin Gordhan's imminent arrest, as well as the corruption charges against President Jacob Zuma. On the first matter, Sean Abrams talking about no espionage charges against Pravin Gordhan. No charges at all against him at this stage. And also saying stop playing with our economy, urging the media, politicians, political analysts, business analysts to all stop playing politics and stop playing with our economy as well. And people should not be tried by media or in public opinion. Strong words coming out there from Sean Abrams, the National Director of Public Prosecution. One-on-one interviews now taking place with the NDPP. Our reporter Michael Apple is in amongst the media there, trying to get some interviews and some clarification on this. Well, joining us now on the phone line, political analyst Sipho Seepe. Sipho, good morning to you. No real surprises in many people's books that the NPA are going to be taking this to the Supreme Court of Appeal. Your initial thoughts on this decision?
Well, I think there are issues of principle that were raised by the National Director, and it's very important. And it's also very important that he spoke very strongly against those who talk about the independence of the prosecution authority but want to influence it. And he singles out here, especially the media, the politicians and analysts. But most importantly, the issue that he was also raising, that the prosecution authority must also be independent from the judiciary. And he read from the Constitution sections that are appropriate where the issue of independence is almost a constitutional obligation, and felt that this case, the manner in which the High Court approached it, was encroaching on the independence of the NPA. And therefore, it was for him an issue of principle to say we need to have clarity on this, because if this is allowed, then, as he put it, the authority will be denuded of any authority on prosecutorial matters, and indicated that the prosecuting authority can withdraw cases at any stage of the case or of the process. And this is something that he felt very strongly about. So that was the first, most important issue, the issue of principle. But what was also very clear for him is that this case has been so contaminated that he has also been lampooned that unless you act this way, you'll be showing yourself to be somebody's lapdog. And he took great exception to that. And the language that he used, and I think it will be something very interesting for us to read. It was a very strong language against people who are not members of the NPA, but wants to direct the NPA.
Professor, it's Abigail Fasahi here. With regards to these two stories, Pravin Gordhan as well as the spy tapes, no doubt there's been huge public interest. Mr. Abrams touching on the issue of public opinion and urging both the media as well as economists to stay away from the so-called court of public opinion. Your views?
Well, we are living in a very divided and divisive society where even the political analysts and economists, they are all seem to be engaged in the political agenda. And he actually felt that they were actually playing a dangerous game. And he says we should actually refrain ourselves from our political agendas. And most importantly, he says, when it comes to Pravin Gordhan, he made it much more clearer than ever before to say the case is not before him. But what he was also saying is to say we must desist from thinking that some people are holier than others, and made it very clear that you have the same people who say don't prosecute Pravin Gordhan but prosecute Zuma, indicating that these are the people who are themselves unconstitutional and dangerous to the functioning of our democracy. So he was almost able to expose the hypocrisy of those voices. And I think what is most important is for us to allow the NPA to do its job. He has come out to explain why it is important for them to appeal, that is a principal matter, where the court will be denuding the NPA of its authority to do the business that it's constitutionally obligated to do. So that's the first one. Secondly, is to say we need to respect our democracy and not undermine it.
Sipho, that was raised in the question and answer session, an interesting one about delay tactics. Shaun Abrahams was asked whether this is a delay tactic. Your thoughts on that now? I mean, we know how long these processes take. Is it the president just buying more time?
No. First of all, the presidency has not bought any time. And Shaun was very clear that these are matters that should also be ventilated, and he still thinks that the Supreme Court of Appeal can deal with it. And he said he had no consultation with the presidency. It is the NPA. And remember, these are also matters that also have been, even though there is the issue of principle that is constitutional, there are also issues of that the Supreme Court of Appeal deals with all criminal cases. And he felt that this should not be bypassed. But the problem is, the question is so biased to assume that because there's a narrative that says he is somebody's lapdog, therefore it follows that he will not choose the quickest path to deal with these issues. But there's nothing illegal in what he has chosen to do, unless that can be shown that his approach is illegal and unwise. Then this matter should be left where it is.
Professor, Mr. Abrahams also touched on the fact that he is aware of public calls to prosecute or not to prosecute President Jacob Zuma, but also adding to that saying that no decision will ever please everyone, and it's not the NPA's job to please everyone. Your views and comments with regards to those statements?
No, I think he's correct. And he was also making a big distinction between what he calls what's in the public's interest and what are the public's wishes. That wishes and interests are two different things. And precisely because you have other people whose wishes are known, and whether they are on both sides of the political spectrum. But what is important is that people must be treated fairly, and he says, I want to deal with these cases and all cases in a manner that is fair. And in doing so, it will not be the station of a person in life that will make a determination, but the interest of justice.
Sipho, it was all about Mokotedi Mshe, the acting head at the time of the dropping of charges. Do you think it's strange that Shaun Abrahams has not spoken to him? He said in answer to one of his questions that he had not spoken to Mokotedi Mshe. Surely he should have maybe spoken to him.
No, not necessarily. Mokotedi Mshe is no longer in that space. And if you were to bring him in, you are bringing somebody who is, at the moment, I think, acting judge into a different space. So you cannot talk about the judicial being independent also from the judiciary and then invite people who are already in that space. But what is most important that he said is that he consulted with a team that appeared before the High Court and also other senior counsel on this matter. So I don't think it's and he also went further to say even the people who were involved with Mshe, like Billy Downer, he did not consult them. So he had to make that decision himself, not to be influenced, but be influenced by the facts that are before him and the principles that should guide his decision.
Well, thank you very much to you, Professor Sipho Seepe. I appreciate your time here on Ground Report. Professor Sipho Seepe, they're commenting on what was said by the head of the NPA, Mr. Shaun Abrahams. They're confirming that the NPA will apply for leave to appeal the spy tapes ruling. But joining us now to discuss things further is Advocate Paul Hoffman to discuss this further. Good morning to you, Advocate, and thank you for joining us here on Ground Report. First and foremost, your views with regards to the NPA's decision and announcement now that they will apply for leave to appeal the spy tapes ruling.
Yes, I'm surprised that they have decided to appeal the ruling. They already have the decision in the Madluli case to guide them in relation to the irrationality of decision-making as to whether or not to prosecute. And it seems that Advocate Abrahams is not entirely on top of the grounds for appeal. He says there's 6, but he can only name 2, and he waves a document at the press and invites them to read it, something which he obviously hasn't done yet.
Paul, it's interesting because that the issue of the Mdluli case was raised with him, and he said you cannot sort of mix the two. You can't. There are different circumstances. You don't agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. The principle is exactly the same, and the rationality of decision making on the part of a functionary appointed in terms of the Constitution is something that is inherent in the rule of law, and the courts are there to test rationality of decision making, because if irrational decisions are taken, they have to be set aside, no matter who takes them. Otherwise, law and order break down. And that doesn't seem to have featured in the deliberations that led to the National Prosecuting Authority deciding to appeal. They would have been far better advised, in my view, to let President Zuma do all the running on appeal, because he's obviously going to appeal, because that's the way he likes to litigate, and they could have sat on the touchline and watched, instead of which noises about the separation of powers, which really don't come into the question, and about the independence of the National Prosecuting Authority are the only reasons that we've heard so far. Maybe somebody in your organization has actually seen the 14 pages of notice of application for leave to appeal and can enlighten us as to what the other four are. But Mr. Abrams wasn't in a position to do so during the press briefing that just ended a few minutes ago.
Advocate Hoffman, with regards to the NPA stating that they're not trying to delay the spy tapes matter by going to the appeal courts first, do you agree with that? What are your views?
No, I think that in tandem with what the presidency will do, which will be to ask for leave to appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeal, that the tactic is indeed to make this case last as long as possible. The fact that the case was started in April 2009 tells you that delay has been the name of the game, and the track record of the NPA during the course of the review proceedings that were eventually heard in the Gauteng North High Court show that they were particularly dilatory in getting on with the show, sort of passed the buck to the president whenever they could, and did not comply with deadlines that were given to them by the applicant in the matter, which is the Democratic Alliance.